I heard that Jains are about 0.5% of the Indian population, but about 25% of the tax
I
revenue.
think that's about right.
What about what would Jains do? WWJD as a campaign in terms of like factory farming.
I think they'd be against factory farming, for sure. I think Jen would support that. They do hold a lot of economic powers. They can definitely shift the needle when it comes to that. So I think they'd be against slaughterhouses, against factory farming, against any industrialized meat. So that's something we could try.
So Jains need to be at the centre of designing the movement. Somebody once said to me that India has got the highest percentage of vegetarians and the lowest percentage of vegans.
I
Does
believe
that
that.
sound about right?
Yeah.
And we asked people what were the challenges. It's not that they didn't like the food. The main challenge is the social aspect.
I had this experience. There was a dinner sitting with a group of women. I assumed that the menu would be plant-based, and I asked for a dessert option and there were none. And someone just looked at me saying, "That's why I stopped being vegan."
Yeah, like you have to be different from the rest of society. The meat industry, the dairy industry, they're lying to you. You're being fed a story that's not correct. The meat industry has done a very successful job in creating doubt. So we need to pivot our strategy. Firstly, we need to stop promoting veganism because it's not working. Instead of asking people to go vegan all the time, we need to
Matthew, for those listening who may not be familiar with the incredible work that you've done or with Veganuary, can you sum up what Veganuary is, a campaign that you co-founded, and the change that you've created so far?
Yeah, so we started, myself and Jane, my co-founder, we started the first campaign was January 2013, and the simple idea was, could we encourage people to go vegan for the month of January? So we had these two words, vegan and January. We merged them together and we created Veganuary, which at first we were like, is anybody going to like that word? But it went viral in the UK in that first year. We did it as a pilot scheme. We were working from home ourselves, and we just created a website and social media channels and everything, and it took off. I mean, in the UK, there is similar movements like Movember, where you grow a mustache for November, which I'd taken part in. And there's Dry January, and there's Stoptober. Stoptober is to stop smoking in October. So we wanted to do something for the animals that had that same sort of vibe. So we created Vegan January. And yeah, the first year, 3,300 people took part. The Daily Mail, they got the news wrong, but they said that Jamie Oliver was doing it, which was totally untrue, but it was really good for us because it amplified the message. Tesco, which is the biggest retailer in the UK, tweeted about us. Cardo, which is an online delivery platform, they put our logo on their website, encouraging people to buy vegan products in January. And yeah, the rest is history. It was like a really good pilot scheme, and obviously we went on to build it as an international movement.
How many signups do we have now in 2025?
So I think we're changing how we engage, how we work it. So it's not necessarily just about people that sign up on the website, because we were finding that people were doing Veganuary, but they weren't necessarily going to the website and signing up. They were just doing it. So now what we do is, in the major countries, we employ YouGov, and they survey the population to ask people directly, in January, are you trying a vegan diet? And I think last year it was about 25 million people based on those surveys in our target countries, which I think is about 8 or 9, maybe 10 target countries.
That's huge.
Yeah.
For you to model a movement like this after November,
Yeah.
what made you think that a month-long challenge would be more effective than traditional activism?
Well, I'm not saying it's necessarily more effective, but I can tell you that in certain countries it's really worked. In the UK, in 2012, I think there was 250,000 vegans in the UK, according to surveys. Now it's more like 1 to 2 million, 1.5 million. Now, it wasn't just us. We were part of an ecosystem that was developing. There was Plant-Based News, there was other charities, Earthling Ed, Joey Carbstrong, these famous activists that were sort of coming out at the same time as Veganuary. So there was a lot of general, but I think we were played a major part in that whole ecosystem in the UK. And then in Germany, that's our best country is Germany now,
Right.
not so much the UK, and that's been great. For bigger countries like the United States and India, we found it much more difficult to cut through because, well, firstly, we're only a small team. We've got limited resources financially, and India, what is it? 1.2 billion people.
1.5 billion people.
1.5 billion
Yeah.
people. Wow. Yeah, to reach 1.5 billion people with a budget of like 1.5 million, like globally, it's very difficult.
I can imagine that.
Yeah. So, but we're trying. I'd love your advice on how we do crack India.
Ooh, I'm trying to figure that out myself, I promise you. Because even though we're predominantly vegetarian population, 30% of Indian population, and that
Yeah.
1.5 billion, 35% of that, it's a huge number.
Yeah.
But we love our dairy.
Yeah. Somebody once said to me that India has got the highest percentage of vegetarians and the lowest percentage of vegans.
Yeah, I
Does
believe
that
that.
sound about right?
Yeah. Trust me.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to guys, the number's even lower. So,
Yeah.
a dating app here, someone told me you should create a vegan dating app if you're trying to find a partner. I'd be like, it would just be me on the app and no one else. Probably
Okay.
that. So that's
Yeah.
the scenario we're looking at.
Well, there is vegan dating apps. I don't know if they're available in India. There's one called
Vegly.
Grazer and
Yeah.
Vegly, Grazer and
Vegly and
Vegly, yeah.
Grazer.
But I think even in the UK and the US, there's not necessarily that many vegans on there. Yeah.
It's looking bleak. But having created such successful campaigns, Generation Vegan, which was called $1 Million Vegan,
$1 Million Vegan, yes.
before, and Veganuary,
Yeah.
what is that one thing about social justice movements that you've learned? What does it take to move the needle when it comes to public behavior? The underlying ingredient.
Yeah.
That
Okay. So
movement needs.
actually, I'll tell you that last year I was quite burnt out and stressed out because it's felt like over the last few years I've put so much time and effort into this, and we're losing. I'm sorry to be negative, but like in the UK and the US, where I spend a lot of my time, the plant-based categories are going backwards. The sales are declining rather than growing. Veganism, or the term vegan, is it's not trendy anymore. It's a negative term in society. The meat industry has done a massive, very successful job in creating doubt and seeding misinformation about vegan products, about vegans, about animal rights. So we've been losing. And I've spent time investing in plant-based companies, building Generation Vegan and Veganuary, and I'm like, what's going on here? So I went back to the drawing board and started rethinking what needs to happen. I've been researching social change theory. I've met with many of the movement leaders around the world, and a lot of the funders, and I'm happy to share with you the learnings that I've had.
Please.
Firstly, we need to stop promoting veganism because it's not working, and that's a shame for somebody that spent 14 years doing that. It's difficult to hear that. In the West, we need to focus on factory farming because nearly everybody agrees with us that factory farming is bad, but we're not getting that message across very well. In Western countries, over 90% of meat, dairy and eggs comes from factory farming. So what we need to do is explain to people that it's very difficult for them to shop their way out of this problem. If they go to a restaurant and they go to a fast food outlet or they go to the supermarket, it's factory farmed meat, it's factory farmed eggs and dairy. Same with fish, underwater factory farming with aquaculture. So we need to get this across to people, and we're not doing that very well at the moment. So we need to pivot our strategy towards, instead of asking people to go vegan all the time and having this agenda, we need to create disgust and anger about factory farming. To do that, we need to get across that it's unhealthy, it's unnatural, it's unclean, and you're being lied to. The meat industry the dairy industry, Amul, McDonald's, Smithfield, JBS, they're lying to you. You know, you're being fed a story that's not correct. And then we need to get across that there's this power imbalance, if you like, and that is that this system is bad for animals, it's bad for us, it's bad for public health, it's bad for the environment. So I think those are the three narrative strategies we need to focus on: disgust, you're being lied to, that deception, and that power imbalance. And then we've got to sell a story that is like, we're better than this. As a society, we are better than this. Like, this is wrong, and we need to work together to fix this system. And that's not necessarily about personal purity. It's about like working together, you know, to improve that. So we need to like we need to nudge people and nudge society. We need to get people angry that the system is wrong, and that collectively we need to move in that direction away from factory farming. And I think that by doing that, by not having an agenda, delivering information with no call to action, just allowing people to think about it, I think you'll actually get more people going vegan anyway.
You think so? So that's the approach that most of us should be taking.
That's the information that me synthesizing the views of many smart people and people that are funding the movement. That is what they want to see. They want to see a focus on factory farming. Now, I'm interested in your view as to, well, how does that apply to India? Because you know, my understanding is that factory farming isn't a term that's particularly known in the same way. But I'm pretty sure that a lot of the conditions for the animals are similar in many ways.
They are.
In terms of like the intensive nature, the overcrowded, the filth, the squalor. I'm sure it's the same in England and France and United States and India.
Yeah, you can't remove the foundation of cruelty or exploitation from any of these industries, right? Because that's what they're based on.
Yeah.
But so many people here are unaware.
Yes.
They believe that we do the same thing we used to do hundreds and thousands of years ago, but
Yeah.
it's not the same anymore. Dairy is industrialized,
Yeah.
which it was not back in the day.
Yes.
But so many people refuse to believe that, and even though we have so many vegetarians, we still cannot let go of our love for dairy.
Yeah.
So it's been difficult, but you cannot win the argument in India without connecting it to religion, without connecting it to culture, without connecting it to our history, colonialism for that matter, because so many of these roots of factory farming and industrialized agriculture come from colonialism that we still follow today. So you can't divorce the narrative from any of these factors. That's what's worked. But if a religious monk is telling you to quit leather or to, quit wearing silk or to stop consuming dairy, that has way more power and weight than any other social narrative.
So we need trusted messengers, is what you're saying, and it might be different trusted messages that we have in the UK versus it's a secular society we live in. So our trusted messengers could be vets, doctors, celebrities, whatever. What you're saying is in India, those trusted messengers are different. It needs to be religious leaders.
Yeah.
We need to get on board. But
has
you
to be a
have
combination.
ahimsa. Like
We do, and that's
Yeah.
the thing. It's so surprising that we believe ahimsa is just about, being kind and maybe just limited to that, but we don't
Yeah.
really extend it to animals.
Yeah.
And we think we, treat all these animals kindly, but we really don't.
If there was to be an election in the US, in the UK, or in India, like next week, where would industrial animal agriculture, factory farming be as an issue, yeah?
No.
If you were to give people a list of 10 things and you were going to say, like the economy, immigration, education, healthcare, the roads, climate change, whatever it is.
Climate change is not even going to
Well, climate change is going down there as well, unfortunately. But where's factory farming gonna be? It's going to be 30th out of 30, maybe
Wow.
29th, isn't it? Maybe, I don't know.
If it makes it.
Yeah, but if we had a concerted effort where we were going after factory farming significantly over the next few years, then could it start moving up the issues? And then maybe by 2030 or 2035, factory farming is something that people really care about. And if that is the case, then it becomes a political issue. it becomes something that politicians are going to have to deal with. It becomes something that companies are going to have to deal with. It's going to be something that investors are going to have to think about. Do they want to be associated with Smithfield and JBS and Amul? Or do they, like, who wants to be associated with Philip Morris and Marlboro now? You don't, do you? Because it's like, smoking, everybody knows it's bad. But at the moment, we're not there with big industrial animal agriculture. So I think that's where we're likely to have more success.
Interesting. But even if this messaging lands, and even if, people switch to the plant-based alternative for a while, and even
Yeah.
if people sign up for Veganuary for, say, a month,
Yeah.
there's so many people that go back to eating meat.
Yes.
People say, I'm no longer vegan. I tried it for a month. I tried it for 2 months. Some
Yeah.
people even go back to eating meat after 7, 8 years, even a decade of being vegan.
Yeah.
Why is that happening? How do we get people to stick to the movement? Is it social pressure? Is it, this fear of being different? What's going on?
I call it the leaking bucket problem. Like, we're trying to fill this bucket up with new vegans all the time, and there's holes in the bucket. So we're just like, the water level's not increasing, even though we're putting water in the bucket, and that's what it feels like is happening. Why is it happening? Well, yeah, like, you have to be different from the rest of society. It's unless people form and make friends and their family join them, then you can be socially isolated as a vegan in most places, and that's uncomfortable for a lot of people. And then you have the health community that's continuously saying, B12, protein, calcium, you need this, and even vegans fall for these tricks, or this situation. I mean, at the moment, a lot of the categories of plant-based meat alternatives are declining. And a lot of the problem is vegans have stopped buying these products because the meat industry's done such a good job of like creating doubt that vegans don't buy these products anymore.
Ultra processed, worse
Yeah,
than animal
yeah,
meat, which is considered natural, even though it's not.
So it's a problem that we have a society at the moment that is not even thinking about this. So for you to stand above the parapet and be the only person in your community that's arguing this, it's a lonely experience. So it's understandable that people give up.
So it's mainly the social pressure and
Social
the
pressure,
fear of being
exactly. Yeah,
different.
yeah. When we do Veganuary, and we ask people in February what were the challenges, it's not that they didn't like the food. It's not that their health was particularly affected in positively or negatively. The main challenge is the social aspect. Yeah, it's like when they go out, it's being mocked by people. It's like availability maybe of the products not being, what they used to. You go from being able to choose anything on a menu to like being restricted, and that for some people, and people they're bringing up families, they're struggling through life, they're trying to earn money, so, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Yeah.
like there's only a small percentage of us that are able to sit back and think bigger picture because most of society, people are just struggling through life.
That's so true. I had this experience at COP29. There
Yeah.
was a dinner after one of these negotiation days, and I remember sitting with a group of women, and I assumed that the menu would be plant-based, which it wasn't. And I asked for a dessert option, and there were none.
Yeah.
And someone just looked at me saying, "That's why I stopped being vegan. I was tired of being the only one in friend settings and group settings where I went out to restaurants and I almost never got any dessert option."
Yeah.
And I felt that, but I was like, maybe my ethics are way too strong for me to think about momentary pleasure or taste. But people do think about conformity and belonging to groups and identities, and that's maybe a bigger reason for them that drives them more than me. For me, it's the animals, end all be all.
Yeah. We just need to keep we need to keep filling up the bucket, and we need to like plug as many holes as we can, and I think we might start making some momentum then.
I really hope so. Social and cultural context, both.
What about veganizing temples? Is that possible or impossible? Because I know it's mostly the elders that are like the uncles and the aunties that are like and very conservative sort of.
So it's really interesting how that works. And even with temples, even with
Yeah.
like Hindu temples,
Yeah.
they use dairy for rituals, for
Yeah.
washing the gods.
Yeah.
It's part of our culture. That's what we
I
say.
know so many amazing Jains though. In terms of like a percentage of Jains that are vegan is probably higher than Hindus and Muslims and Christians. I would have thought. I don't know. I don't know. I've not seen the stats for it. But it feels like if you were to convert one religion to entirely veganism,
Yeah,
Jains are probably the first
100%.
one that you would target
Yeah,
because ahimsa is built so strongly into your
yeah.
culture,
Jainism and Buddhism both.
and Buddhism maybe as
Yeah.
well. Yeah,
So I think that's where maybe we should start. Where
yeah,
take the
yeah,
messaging that way.
yeah. What about what would Jains do? WWJD as a campaign.
Oof. What would Jains do in a campaign with veganuary?
No, just using that as a message. What would Jains do, like in terms of like factory farming?
I think they'd be against
Yeah,
factory farming
yeah,
for sure. I think
yeah,
Jains would support that. And
yeah,
the best thing about Jains is that they're known to have a lot of money.
yeah,
So they do hold a lot of
yeah,
economic powers. They can
yeah,
definitely shift the needle when it comes to that. So I
yeah,
think they'd be against slaughterhouses,
yeah,
against factory farming,
yeah,
against any industrialized,
yeah,
meat.
yeah.
So that's something we could try.
I heard that Jains are about 0.5% of the Indian population, but about 25% of the tax. Okay, so Jains need to be at the center of like designing the movement that we have here as well.
What I love most about veganuary is that the messaging is not preachy. It's not really about shaming anyone. It's not
Yeah.
about making anyone feel guilty.
Yeah.
So, what are these communication tactics or strategies that work that bring people into the movement and not drive them away from it?
Yeah, well, I think we need like a tactical arsenal of different methods that we approach people. I think the opportunity that AI presents us is absolutely awesome, and so I'm starting to work with various people to try and figure out how we use AI to our advantage. So I think a digital stroke AI first strategy is what I'm going to be working on going forward. But it can't just work on its own. I think you do need to have PR running alongside. We need to get the message into newspapers and traditional media. We need out of home advertising, billboards, London Underground ads, New York subway, that type of thing as well. We need grassroots activism. We need people on the streets as well. I don't know, have you read a book called Change, How to Make Big Things Happen
No,
by
not
Damon
yet.
Centola? Highly recommend you read it. And it's about tipping points. How do you reach tipping points in society? And I read that book and it really sort of affected me. It looks at like how Twitter took off and Facebook, but also other social justice movements, how they've typically happened in the past. And quite often change happens not necessarily from one famous influencer telling everybody to go vegan, because it's a very complex contagion that we're trying to spread here. Like a celebrity saying, buy this drink, that's a simple contagion. It's not, you're not asking people to change who they are and what they eat 3 times a day and how
Yeah.
they feel about the world. So complex contagions, they tend to start at the network periphery. So that it starts in isolated communities within, and it spreads from there. So I really started looking at all of this and thinking, well, we have limited resources, we have limited financial resources, and we're a small group of activists. There's maybe like 5 or 10,000 activists in the world. If you put that against 8 billion people, it's like 0.00001% of all of
And the amount of
humanity.
funding and the money
Yeah,
that's against us as well.
yeah. So, what about we focus in on a few cities? So I had this strategy, which I call the Future Food City strategy. And the idea is to pick 5 cities where there's already some sort of significant momentum, where we could like throw the kitchen sink at those cities. So I said Berlin, London, New York, San Francisco Bay Area, and Los Angeles. Los Angeles, you've got Hollywood effect, so you can get ripple effects from there. San Francisco, we have the AI opportunity. London has a lot of soft power in terms of culturally,
Yeah. The most vegan-friendly city in the world.
music, yeah, and it's like the third most visited city in the
Yeah.
world. So people are coming and seeing what's happening here. Berlin, because the power it has, in terms of influence in Europe. And then we would have tier two cities, which would then introduce global south cities such as Mumbai, Bangkok, Mexico City, Sao Paulo. But let's start and let's prove that our activism, when it's focused in on certain cities, we can actually make our activism work. So I was hypothesizing, what about if we do institutional change, policy work, strategic litigation, grassroots activism, social media campaigns, influencers getting involved, like PR, media, everything combines in one place so that you get that social reinforcement. So imagine this was happening in Mumbai, and Priya, she's 36, she works in marketing, she cares about her family, she cares about animals. Just imagine that individual. She goes to work, and on the work she's listening to a podcast, and there's an advert that comes on about, dairy industry is really bad, XYZ. And then she gets to work, and in the fridge, the cow's milk's been like switched out for oat milk. And then she goes for lunch, and one of her friends has like said, "Oh, I've decided to start eating more plant-based. It's it's better for me." And once you've seen what's going on in factory farming, or and then she goes to the doctor, and her blood pressure's a bit high, and her cholesterol's a bit high. So her doctor says, "Have you thought about eating more plant-based?" And so the idea is that and maybe a family member's gone vegan or whatever. All of these things, you need that social reinforcement within society.
Yeah, but over and over again, like
Over and over
planting
again.
one seed on top of another. I think it's that.
But when we have limited resources, if we try and do that globally, we're never going to do it. So my recommendation would be in India for the movement to actually think, why don't we start in one place? Maybe Mumbai is that place. Let's have talent density here. Let's have all of the main people working together here. Maybe create a co-working space where everyone's like brainstorming and together and working collaboratively. But it needs funding as well. You need to be able to have the advertising and everything all coming together. So I think that would be a smart strategy. We're not there yet, but it's something for us all to think about.
That's really cool. I'd love that. There's a lot of infighting, but I'd love to see different groups and communities coming together, different professions coming together.
But that infighting tends to happen online. If you get the main leaders together in a room, you tend to find that some of the differences get ironed out face to face.
And the ethos is the same at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I love that. How would you sum up what you learned from the book that you recommended? What was the biggest takeaway from change?
Yeah, it's how people need social reinforcement over and over again. If you're just a single person and you hear a message just one time, it's gonna go over your head. You need to see it and witness it in a number of different areas. And it doesn't have to be just geographically. It can be within a social network. It can be like everybody within the gaming community is all going vegan, or everybody within the Jain community is all going vegan. Or in an ideal world, what you do is you pick a city, but then you look at the social networks within that city. Who are the opportunities? Is it the yoga mums? Is it the I don't know, the environmentalists? Whatever it is within a movement, and we start there, and then you get these ripple effects, and we need to think about how it's all structured.
How it snowballs as well.
Yeah.
We've spoken about what doesn't work and what's clearly not working, but Matthew, what gives you hope? What's still driving you to keep showing up and to keep doing this work every single day?
I still believe in people. I still believe that people are inherently good, even if they're doing bad things at the moment. You think about some of the things that human beings did 300 years ago. 300 years ago, if you'd have asked people in the UK, what do you think of slavery? Most people supported slavery. They bought products from slavery, and now they don't. now it's frowned upon, obviously. And I think that's just the same situation we're at the moment.
When there's like when people stop funding certain companies, and plant-based companies are like
Yeah.
probably in that category, especially
Yeah.
food. I don't think fashion, on the other hand,
Yeah.
booming.
Oh, it could be. Yeah, yeah.
Biomaterials, like
Yeah.
insane. So I was at London Climate Action Week that I was
Yeah.
telling you about.
Yeah.
There was this event called Future Fabrics Expo,
Yeah.
and everywhere there was just alternatives to calf leather, and people trying nanocellulose, bacteria, mycelium. So with biomaterials especially, they're innovating. But when it
Yeah.
comes to food, everyone's like,
Yeah. We're not eating leather, are we? So
yeah.
it's
That's probably easier. I
yeah.
feel like fashion's a
Yeah.
low,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I can tell you that so through Veg Capital, we invested in over 30 companies, and it's been difficult. It's been a very challenging market. If you look at the United States and the UK specifically, the plant-based meat alternatives, or plant-based categories as a whole, have been declining like consistently for 3 or 4 years now, and I don't think we've bottomed out yet. It's not like, you hear about the trough of disillusionment where you've got excitement and then it
Yeah.
peaks and then it goes down, and then the idea is, like with electric cars, this happened, and then
Yeah.
it grows again and
Skyrocketed.
skyrockets.
Mm.
I'd like to hope that we're in the trough of disillusionment at the moment, and it will, like we'll reorganize and the products will get better and society, will shift in the right direction and things will start growing. Now, there are opportunities in terms of consolidation and mergers and acquisitions, and I've been involved in some of that.
Right.
I created a company 4 years ago called VFC, Vegan Fried Chicken. Tried to create like an alternative to KFC, if
Yeah.
you like, and we have had some success, and the brand's grown. But at the same time as we launched, the market was
Yeah.
sliding, so it was difficult conditions. We ended up acquiring Meatless Farm. This was a brand that raised over £90 million over a number of years during the good years, and they ran out of cash. So we bought it from the administrator. We then bolted on a pie company, and then we bought a tofu company in Germany. So the idea is to create a vegan Unilever type of
I like that.
operation. Yeah. So we've got these 4 brands: Tofu Town, VFC, Clive's Pies, and Meatless Farm. And that's how we see it going forward. Is like brands consolidating, one overhead that's looking after multiple brands, and that's the play that we're working on at the moment. But in terms of new products, new alternative proteins, the best way to promote plant-based food is not to promote plant-based food. The best way to promote plant-based food is to go after big meat and factory farming and make people disgusted and concerned about that and angry about that. That's the best way to do it.
Matthew, we've spoken at length about what's not working,
Yeah.
but what gives you hope despite all of this? What makes you keep showing up every day and keep doing the work that you do?
What gives me hope is that I do believe in humanity. I do think people are inherently good. There is a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King, and it says, and it's, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." And that gives me hope. That helps motivate me. I've said this previously on interviews, but I'll say it again because it really sums up my viewpoint. We're not in a 100-meter sprint here. If you were to use an analogy of track and field, what I mean by that is we might not see the finish line as individuals. Yeah, I like to think that we're running a 4x400-meter relay, and we're probably running the second leg, and somebody has already handed the baton to us. Yeah, all the people before us that have opened the way for us to feel the way we do. So we're running the second leg, and we need to run it as fast as we can and as efficiently as we can, and we need to efficiently hand that baton over to the next person, and one of our team will reach the end, and we will win this race, but we need to run our leg, and we need to know that we've got to continue, and we've got to pass the baton on. So that's what keeps me motivated. I'm not necessarily going to see the finish line myself, but we still need to run the race.
That's beautiful. That almost made me tear up.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you don't realize what you do and what the impact is, but you know you
Yeah.
have to keep going,
We have
because
to
at
keep
the end of the
going.
day, it's about one animal at a
What
time,
else are we going
right?
to do?
Yeah.
You can't unlearn what you know, can you?
Mm,
And yeah, so
that's
anybody
beautiful.
watching this, and Shreya yourself, keep at it. I'm going to keep going, and I think we we will get there eventually. But it's tough.
It is. You get a lot of hate, you get a lot of backlash.
Yeah.
You've seen the ups and downs, and
Yeah.
there are a lot of downs,
Yeah.
I can promise that.
Yeah.
But it's the purpose, it's the, love for the animals that
Yeah.
keeps us going at the end of the day, and
Yeah.
also sustainability. Such a huge part of
Yeah.
why I do this
Yeah.
is knowing that there needs to be a planet for us to sustain even the
Yeah.
human race.
Yeah.
And it's all interconnected, and we
Yeah.
don't see that.
Yeah.
But
That is one thing that does concern me, that the person running the third or fourth leg might run out of
literally
might
the
be no
earth.
planet left.
Yeah. So,
But we'll see.
that's what
Yeah.
we're shouting
Yeah.
at rooftops, but
Yeah.
wherever the message lands.
Yeah.
That was going to be my last question to you, Matthew. Anyone listening to this, any animal lovers, any activists, any change makers, fighting any social justice movements, what advice would you like to give them? Any learnings, any experience from, the work that you've done, or anything that you would have done differently that they can learn from?
Yeah, I think if everybody just steps back, and quite often we're just in this mindset of just keep doing what we've been doing and do it over and over again. And I think critically, like step back, read, learn, look at social change theory, what's worked before, what hasn't, and and keep going. I think that's what's happening. Even though I'll give another analogy, which I like. This is a good finale for us. I feel like imagine an ice cube, and it's -4 degrees, yeah? And that ice cube, and the temperature increases to -3 degrees. The ice cube still looks like an ice cube. And at -2 degrees, it's still an ice cube. And at -1, it's still an ice cube. At 0, it's still an ice cube. But when the temperature increases beyond freezing point, it gets to 1 degree and 2 degree, that ice cube starts to melt. Now, it could very well be that we're in a position where the temperature is changing. Like, we're getting the foundations in place of our movement. We are learning. We're figuring shit out. Yeah, sorry for swearing. We're figuring stuff out at the moment. But it's not obvious. We're not seeing the ice cube change. We're not seeing society change significantly fast. But we are doing the right things right now, and I think that's a possibility. It's a huge possibility that we are doing, and I'm seeing a lot of progress and movement happening in the background where people are starting to think more strategically, and I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful that that will start to be recognised over the coming years.
I said last question, but the actual last question is, what does sustainability mean to you?
Well, sustainability, I'm all for the animals. I like, that was what really triggered that big emotional response when I was 38 years old. So it wasn't necessarily like the environment and sustainability that really hit me. It was like cruelty to animals. It was like a visceral feeling of like God. And I'm still really motivated by that. That's what I get up. I was actually happy to have a decline in my health just to do the work that I was doing, because I felt it was so important to me. So it's what motivates me every single day. Is I get up, I'm focused, I'm obsessed almost about making the world a better place for farmed animals, all animals. I just care so deeply about it.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for the incredible work that you've done, the millions and billions of animals that I'm sure you've saved through the Veganuary campaign and everything else that you've done so far. And I hope you find the drive, motivation, the love and purpose, and the intention behind starting these movements. I hope that keeps you going all the way till the end, till you pass the baton on to someone else.
I'm the same to you. Thank you for giving me a platform, and also thank you for all the amazing work that you're doing for the animals as well. So.
Thank you so much. In it together.
In it together on the same team.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matthew.